There is a question most people are afraid to ask themselves, not because it is difficult, but because the answer might destroy everything they have spent years building. The question is this: are you living your own life or someone else's? Not the one your parents want for you, not the one society approves of, not the one that looks right on paper, your own. The one that pushes from inside, sometimes painfully, sometimes frightening, sometimes so quietly you can barely hear it, but it pushes. Hermann Hesse wrote Demian in 1918, in less than 3 months, in a state he described as possession. Shortly before, he had suffered a nervous breakdown. His marriage had fallen apart. The world literally lay in ruins. World War I was raging, millions were dying, an entire era crumbling. And in the middle of that chaos, Hesse wrote a book about finding yourself, about the most important journey of all, the journey inward. He published it under a pseudonym, Emile Sinclair, the main character's name. No one knew the author. The book became a sensation. Young people who had survived the war and had no idea how to keep living read it and wept. One critic wrote, "At last, someone said what we all felt but could not express." Only a few years later did it come out that Hesse was the author. Already well known, already the author of other books, but Demian was his most personal, most piercing work. Hesse did not simply write a coming-of-age novel. He wrote the autobiography of his own soul. He himself had been a Sinclair, a boy from a religious family who felt from childhood that the world was not what he was told. They sent him to seminary. He ran away. They treated him for depression. He turned it into books. His whole life, he searched for a way to reconcile two worlds, the world of the spirit and the world of the earthly, rules and freedom. Demian is where that search came to rest. Not an answer, but an honest account of the journey. Subscribe so you don't miss the books that genuinely move something inside you. No filler in exactly 30 minutes. Sinclair, Emile Sinclair, a boy from a respectable German family in a small town, late 19th century. His father, a civil servant, serious, upright, loving. His mother, warm, devout, kind. 2 older sisters, a home that smells of order and Sunday baking. From the very start, Hesse establishes the book's central metaphor. Sinclair sees the world divided into 2 spaces. The first, bright. This is home, parents, grace before meals, rules, virtue, the certainty that if you do everything right, everything will be fine. The second, dark. The street, the world beyond the front door, drunk laborers, rough voices, stories of fights and theft, the smell of something foreign and dangerous, alluring and frightening. Sinclair feels he belongs to both worlds, and to neither completely. He sits at the table with his parents, content, but something in him pulls toward the darkness, toward what is never discussed at dinner, and he is ashamed. He thinks, I must be bad. Something must be broken inside me. From the very first pages, Hesse tells the reader, no, this is not brokenness. This is humanity. This is what separates a living person from a puppet. That split is the starting point of any real journey toward yourself. And then, Cromer. Franz Cromer. 3 years older than Sinclair. Rough, cocky, with the smile of someone used to taking what he wants. One day, Sinclair finds himself at the river with Cromer and some other boys. To make an impression, to feel like one of them for just a minute, Sinclair tells a made-up story about stealing apples from a neighbor's orchard. A childish lie, nothing serious. But Cromer demanded, swear it, and Sinclair swore, by God and by his soul. From that moment, Sinclair was trapped. Cromer knew the story was invented. He began to blackmail him, demanded money. Demanded Sinclair show up on command, demanded small, gradual humiliations. And the worst part? Sinclair could not tell his parents, because then they would find out about the lie. He lived in constant fear, woke up at night, could not think of anything else. Every knock at the door, Cromer. Every voice on the street, Cromer. The fear soaked into everything. The bright world of home became a prison because Sinclair knew he was no longer clean the way his parents believed. He had already betrayed that world. Hesse describes this feeling with surgical precision. This is what guilt truly is. Not the kind you get punished for, the kind you carry inside and cannot set down, the kind that changes you from within, quietly, daily, unstoppably. I went through something like that myself once. Not blackmail, but a small lie that kept growing. And that feeling, when everything looks fine outside but inside you know you are no longer who you were, Hesse captures it exactly. Like living in two moments at once. Drop a comment. Has something like this ever happened to you? A situation, a person, a fear that held you trapped and you could not tell anyone? How long did it last? And then a new student appeared in class. Max Demian, a little older, a little calmer, transferred from another school, living with his mother. At first glance, just another student, but something about him was different. He did not behave like a child, did not flatter teachers, did not bully the weak, did not show off. He simply existed, with such inner stillness that everything around him seemed noisy and empty. His gaze was striking. Demian looked at you as if he could see something you could not see in yourself. Not judgmentally, simply with attention, like someone accustomed to looking at the core of things, not their surface. Demian noticed that Sinclair was weighed down. He did not ask directly. He was simply there. Gradually, Sinclair told him everything about Cromer, the lie, the fear. And Demian did not judge him, did not say, "You should not have lied," did not say, "Tell your parents." He said, "I will handle it." And he did. No one ever found out exactly how. Demian spoke with Cromer. After that conversation, Cromer vanished from Sinclair's life for good, never came back, never demanded anything, simply disappeared. How it happened, the book does not explain. And this is essential, because Hesse makes clear, Demian does not operate through ordinary means. Not through threats or force. He operates through understanding people, through knowing their weak points, through some particular power of presence. He knows how the world actually works, the real world, not the one they teach in school. Sinclair was saved, but the rescue opened something new. He had met someone who thinks differently, who sees differently, and once you have seen that, you cannot unsee it. They began to talk. Long conversations on the way home, in quiet corners of the schoolyard. The topics were unusual for boys of 10 or 11. One day, the teacher told the story of Cain and Abel. Cain killed his brother. God marked him with a seal, the mark of a curse. From that day on, people who bore that mark were outcasts, carriers of sin. Demian listened, then said to Sinclair quietly, "Have you ever considered that all of this might be the other way around? What if Cain was stronger than Abel? What if people feared those who bore that mark because they were different, free, dangerous? And so they invented the story of a curse, called strength sin, called freedom exile. Because it is convenient. If you are stronger than others, declare yourself righteous and call them damned." Sinclair was stunned. For the first time, someone suggested looking at a sacred story from the other side, not accepting it, but questioning it, thinking. That is the central lesson Demian teaches in childhood. Do not blindly believe anything, even what is considered absolutely right. Ask questions, especially the uncomfortable ones nobody else is asking. Then Demian disappeared. His mother moved, he transferred schools. Sinclair was alone again, and gradually he began to come apart. This is one of the most honest passages in the book. Sinclair moves to a new boarding school in another city. There he falls in with a crowd that drinks, not because he wants to, but because he does not know what to do with the emptiness inside. Because the bright world of his parents now seems like a fairy tale he has outgrown, and the new world does not exist yet. This state, no longer where you were, not yet where you are going, Hesse describes as one of the most dangerous in a person's life. In that emptiness, it is easy to fall, to fill it with anything, drinking, idleness, other people's opinions, anything to avoid your own bewilderment. Sinclair fell, and got back up, and fell again, until one day, in a park, he saw her. This is an important moment in the book. Hesse does not blame Sinclair for his falls, does not say, "You should have held on." He says, falling is part of the journey. The person who has never fallen has never truly searched. Pain is not punishment, it is a signal. You are alive. You have not arrived yet, but you are moving. A girl. He did not know her name, tall, fair, with something distinctive in her bearing. Not pride, no, something larger, a kind of inner dignity that requires no defense. Sinclair watched her for a few seconds. They never saw each other again. He named her Beatrice. After Dante's beloved, glimpsed briefly in childhood, and who became his guiding star for life. Dante was never with Beatrice, but her image helped him write the Divine Comedy and pass through hell. Sinclair began drawing her portrait, again and again. But a strange thing happened. The more he drew, the less the face resembled that girl. It became something different. More androgynous, more powerful, less earthly. And one day Sinclair realized with astonishment he had drawn Demian. This is one of the key moments in the book. Hesse is telling us something important. The image we seek outside ourselves, a beloved, a mentor, an ideal, always reflects something inside us. We do not fall in love with a specific person. We fall in love with the embodiment of our ideal self, with who we want to become. Beatrice is not the woman in the park. She is the best Sinclair sensed was possible within himself, and Demian too. Both are projections of his own depth. Personally, this hit me hardest, because it is true for every one of us. We spend our lives looking for someone, a teacher, a lover, a hero, who will show us the way. And Hesse says, that someone is you, simply the part of yourself you have not reached yet. Sinclair sent the drawing to Demian on a guess to an old address. Sometime later, a reply, a note, a few words. The bird fights its way out of the egg. The egg is the world. Whoever wants to be born must destroy a world. The bird flies to God. The name of that God is Abraxas. Abraxas. In his new city, Sinclair often heard music from a small church. The organist. A strange man, solitary, no longer young, living apart from everyone. He played unusually, nothing like church music. There was something pagan in it, dark, primordial, as if the organ sang not to the Christian God, but to something far older. Sinclair found him. His name was Pistorius, and Pistorius became Sinclair's next teacher, just as unexpected as Demian. It was Pistorius who explained the word from the note, Abraxas, an ancient Gnostic deity, a being containing both light and darkness, creation and destruction, good and evil, choosing neither side but holding both. In Christianity, God is only light. Darkness is the devil. They are opposites at war, and a person must choose a side. But think, what happens to someone who chooses only light? He cuts away half of himself. Anger, rage, dark desire, he hides it all, declares it sin, locks it in the basement, and thinks he has won. But everything we hide does not disappear. It retreats into the shadow, and from there it governs us, invisibly, from beneath. The person who never allows themselves to be angry one day explodes, disproportionately and destructively. The person who denies their selfishness expresses it in the most elaborate ways. The person who wages war on their darkness spends all their life force on the fight. But Abraxas is different. He is not torn between light and darkness. He is both poles within him at once. That is what makes him real. Pistorius told Sinclair, "You live only half of yourself, the half the world approves of. The other half, dark, forbidden, the one you are ashamed of, does not disappear when denied. It retreats to the basement, and from there runs you in secret." Jung called this the shadow, the parts of ourselves pushed into the unconscious because they seemed unacceptable. Aggression, envy, the desire for power, cruelty, everything we were told, this is bad, hide it. But the shadow does not disappear. It operates from the dark, makes us do things we never intended, draws us toward situations we ourselves condemn. The unacknowledged part always seeks an exit. Hesse, through Pistorius, says, the only way to become whole is to meet the shadow, not fight it, not defeat it, but look it in the eye and say, you are also me. You are part of me. Pistorius taught Sinclair to meditate on fire. Simply stare into a flame for a long time, without thought, letting images arrive on their own. A way to listen to yourself, to your real self, the one hidden under layers of upbringing and rules. They spent long hours together, talking about myths, Greek, Indian, Egyptian. Pistorius showed, all the great myths say the same thing. The hero must descend into the underworld, enter the darkness, and return from it, changed. This is universal. Odysseus in the underworld, Orpheus among the dead, Dante in hell. Everywhere the same. True birth happens through darkness, through the death of the old self. But then a rupture came between Sinclair and Pistorius. Sinclair was young and overconfident. One day he said something cruel, that Pistorius's ideas were archival dust, that he lived in the past, that he could not move forward. It was the truth, but a cruel one, the kind you speak not to help, but because you have outgrown the relationship and cannot find any other way to say so. Sinclair felt guilty for a long time after. Not because what he said was false, but because he had hurt someone who loved him. Leave a comment. Has it ever happened to you that you hurt someone who was helping you grow? How did you live with that? Alone again. But now a different kind of alone, not lost. More like someone who has traveled part of the road and can see that what lies ahead is their own path, without guides. And then Demian again. Sinclair found himself in the city where Demian's family had once lived. He went to the old house, asked the landlady. She showed him a photograph of Demian's mother. Sinclair looked and went rigid. It was the same face, the face he had been drawing. Beatrice, Demian, his eternal image. All this time, her, Frau Eva. He found her. The meeting happened almost by chance, or no, nothing in this book is coincidental. Sinclair had literally drawn her to himself through the force of his longing. Frau Eva opened the door, and it felt as if he had come home. Who is she? Hesse describes her with the same mystery as Demian. Tall, calm, with dark eyes that see not just you, but your entire story, including the future one. Something maternal and something entirely unmaternal. Something drawing and something unreachable. She never fusses. She simply is. The name Eva is no accident. Eve from the Bible. The one who first reached for the tree of knowledge. The one condemned for wanting to know the truth. For choosing understanding over safety. For choosing to live truly instead of remaining in a paradise that was beautiful but empty. Hesse makes her a symbol, not simply a woman, an archetype. The great mother who does not protect you from life, but releases you into it. Who says, go. Go where it is frightening. Go where it is dark. You will survive. Around Demian and Frau Eva gathered a particular circle. Artists, philosophers, seekers, people the ordinary world considered strange or dangerous. They were not united by ideology or religion. Something else bound them. Each had accepted their own existence completely and stopped pretending. For Sinclair, this was a revelation. All his life he had thought his inner contradictions were an illness to cure, that he needed to choose one side and hold to it. But here were people who carried both sides and did not come apart. They were whole precisely because they were not trying to be simple. Demian explained, some people live like grass grows, wherever the wind blows. Others carry something within them. Not superiority, not special knowledge, simply a mark, a sign that a person has lived truly, faced their darkness and not run, passed through destruction and survived. Demian said, the world is at the edge of something enormous. The old order will collapse because everything built on a lie eventually falls apart. And when it does, those who have passed through themselves will be ready. Not because they are better, but because they have already died and been reborn inside. They know, after destruction comes birth. I remember reading those pages and thinking, this is about us, not about 1918, about right now. About the feeling that something enormous is shifting, that old ways of living have stopped working and nobody knows what comes next. And in moments like that, the question matters most. Do you know who you are? War. Mobilization declared. Demian rode to Sinclair on horseback, pale, shaken. For the first time, he said, it is beginning. We knew this was coming. It will be big. And this is only the start. Sinclair listened and felt something strange. Fear, but alongside it, something like clarity. As if the fog had lifted. As if the vague thing he had searched for his whole life had finally taken shape. Demian went to the front. He was a lieutenant. No one had known. Sinclair was called up too. Frau Eva saw him off. She kissed him on the mouth, not as a lover, not as a mother, like fate. The front. Sinclair saw war from the inside. men marching to their deaths, many with exhilaration, with flags, with a sense of high purpose. Sinclair watched and thought, they are not dying for their country. They are dying because life had become unbearable, because there is no meaning inside, and in war, the meaning is simple and clear. Die with honor. But among them he also saw others, not many, those whose eyes held a different quality, not exhilarated, not desperate, calm, like those who no longer fear. Hesse wrote this knowing what he wanted to say. He observed the war from Switzerland, working with the wounded, helping prisoners. He saw how from that horror something was being born, something without a name yet. He saw how war strips people of their masks, all the roles played in peacetime, upstanding citizen, good husband, obedient son, fell away, and what remained was something raw and real, sometimes terrible, sometimes unexpectedly beautiful, but always real. War is an extreme experience. In it, you see who you actually are, not who you pretended to be. Sinclair was badly wounded. He lost consciousness. He came to in a field hospital and immediately felt he is nearby. On the adjacent stretcher lay Demian, pale, eyes closed, but alive, or nearly. He opened his eyes, looked at Sinclair, smiled with that stillness always his. He said quietly, "Little Sinclair, do you still remember me?" A pause. "If you ever need help again, call for me. Only do not wait for me to arrive on horseback or by rail. Look inside yourself. I am there. I have always been there. One more thing. Frau Eva told me to give you a kiss, if things were hard." He leaned forward and touched his lips to Sinclair's, the way a mother kisses a child before a long journey. Sinclair closed his eyes. In the morning, there was a stranger on the adjacent stretcher. Demian was gone. Did he die? Did he leave? The book gives no answer, because an answer is not needed. Demian was never only a person. He was what any true teacher must be, present exactly as long as needed, gone the moment Sinclair could walk on his own. This is the ending. Sinclair lies in the hospital, alone, without Demian, without Frau Eva, only himself, and silence. And then, understanding, not in the mind, but in the whole body. He did it. Passed through childhood lies and fear, through loss, through emptiness, through war, and remained. Not who he had been, who he was meant to be. He closes his eyes, and knows, if he ever wants to find Demian again, all it takes is to look inside. Because Demian was always him. The part that knew the truth, the part that was not afraid of the dark, that saw both sides of the world and accepted them. Hesse wrote a novel about the longest journey in life, the journey toward yourself. Not success, not happiness, not recognition, yourself. And that journey never ends. Sinclair at the close of the book is neither happy nor unhappy. He is real. That matters more. Hesse gives you no happy ending, no instruction. He says, "This path is yours. It has already begun. You are already on it. You just may not know it yet. All you need is to learn to listen to the voice inside when you are very still. We read, you save hours. If you want more breakdowns like this, support the channel. USDTTRC20, TBEBXWJFEA, JHFARVS, JVT, 8N, 6YV5, RVN4, GXP7. Thank you for watching. One last thing, not about the book, but about why it is worth reading right now. We live in a time when everything tells you who to be. Algorithms, trends, other people's expectations. Be productive, be successful, look right, think right. And in all that noise, it is easy to lose yourself. Your real self, somewhere inside. Demian reminds you, your darkness is not your enemy. Your doubts are not weakness. Your feeling that you do not fit is not a defect. It is a signal that you are a little more than the role others expect you to play. Hesse wrote about the bird fighting to get out of the egg. The egg is safe, warm, uncertain free. But inside an egg, you cannot fly. The journey toward yourself always involves destruction of the old image of yourself, of familiar explanations, of comfortable illusions, and it hurts. But there is no other way to be born. Sinclair knows this at the end of the book. If you read it, you will too. There are books that give you knowledge, books that give you skills, and books that give you yourself. Demian is that last kind. It does not make you smarter, it makes you more honest with yourself, and that may be the most valuable thing any book can do. Burning books is a crime, but not reading them is worse. We fix that in 30 minutes. Subscribe.